does that for some reason. I don't know why. I think because I do have it turned on announce.
Oh.
All right, thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. We are for our webinar that Lauren Spenceley and myself have put together on media literacy. What is it and how do you teach it? So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with some items of business. First is to check the volume on your computer. If you are not muted, go ahead and do that now, please. Turn off your video camera. That does help with connectivity, as well as we are recording this session to put it out on our website. You can want to click on the chat box, which is that little icon there. It looks like a little call out kind of thing, and then open it up on your screen, because that will be our main form of communication, but we will be accessing Jamboard and Padlet today. And then also, if you can, please double check that your cell phones are muted, so that way we have your undivided attention as best as we can for the next 55, 60 minutes. So with that, to introduce myself, my name is Linda Burrows, and I am the K-12 Social Studies and World and Native Languages Specialist here at the Department of Education. And I'm going to turn it over to Lauren and have her introduce herself. While Lauren is introducing herself, if you wouldn't mind in the chat, please introduce yourself. This is also another way that I can double check the attendance for us, is to type your first and last name, especially as you had it recorded in our system, into the chat, state your current position, and also I'd like to see where you are from. And so if you can put that into the chat as well, and I will turn it over to Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. So excited to work with you all today. My name is Lauren Spenceley, and I am the secondary ELA specialist on our English Language Arts team here in the Academic Standards Division at the Department of Ed. And so that's 6th through 12th, all things 6th through 12th ELA. And I'm very excited to be with you today, and I love presenting with Linda. We love collaborating with ELA and social studies because they work so great together.
Definitely. And just so you all know, you will be receiving a copy of the presentation with all of the links, hyperlinks, resources, everything that we go over in this session, you will have access to. Give us at least a week. I usually get it done within a couple of days. But wait for that email from me that says, hey, your attendance has been marked complete. You now can go into our system and print off your certificate, and that will have a PDF of your, the PDF of the resources too for today. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Lauren.
All right, so today we have a packed session for you. So many resources. So we are first going to start by examining media literacy and why it belongs in all content areas. Examine some best practices for teaching media literacy, and then review media literacy resources to use in your classrooms. And we have so many things for you, so many great resources today. So that is what we will be doing today. And so we're going to start today with definitions of media literacy, what they are, and basically what that means. So,
there we go.
All right, so first question for you all today, after you've done introducing yourself, how many hours do you think your students are spending consuming media a day? So type your answer in the chat. What do you think? How many hours do students spend consuming media? Too many. 10 through 12.
Yes. Looks like on the low end, we've got about 6 hours up to about 15.
All right, so we kind of fell within that range. So it is 10 hours and 45 minutes on average that you spend with media per day. 92% of youth go online daily. And food and beverage marketers spend $150 million every year to reach K-12 youth directly in schools. So those 92% that are going online daily are being reached by these food and beverage marketers as well. They know where their money is. So with that, we're going to talk about why media literacy is so important, because if they're spending that many hours a day, waking hours, interacting with this, then there's some really important things that we need them to understand about it so that they can interact with it safely and intelligently. So this here is from Len Masterman, Teaching the Media and Literacy for the 21st Century by the Center for Media Literacy. And they talk about why media literacy is important. So the influence of media is central in our democratic processes. And that in this culture that we have in our global media culture, people need 3 skills to be engaged citizens of a democracy: critical thinking, self-expression, and participation. And so having these media literacy skills media literacy instills these core skills, enabling future citizens to make informed decisions about political decisions and to make informed decisions in the voting booth. The second reason why media literacy is important is the high rate of media consumption and the saturation of society by media. So we think about all the different ways that they are getting this is being thrown at them through their cell phones, social networking, video games, television, pop music, radio, everything, even t-shirts. We're exposed to more mediated messages in one day than our great-grandparents were exposed to in a year. Media literacy teaches the skills needed to navigate through all of that sea of images and messages for our whole life. Obviously not just in a school setting. The media's influence, so the third reason why it's important is that the media has an influence on shaping perceptions, beliefs, and attitudes. While research can disagree on the extent and type of influence, it is unquestionable that media experiences exert a significant impact on the way we understand, interpret, and act on our world. So to helping our students understand those influences, media education can help us separate from our dependencies on them. The fourth reason, the increasing importance of visual communication and information. So schools continue to be dominated by print, but our lives are increasingly influenced by visual images from corporate logos, billboards, cell phones, websites, social media, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, all of these things. So learning how to read the multiple layers of image-based communication is necessary adjunct to traditional print literacy. We live in a multimedia world. So we've got the print literacy, but we also have media literacy. And then finally, our last why media literacy is important is the importance of information in society and the need for lifelong learning. So all of these things, information processing, information services, are at the core of our nation's productivity, but the growth of global media industries is also challenging independent voices and diverse views. So media education can help both teachers and students understand where information is coming from. And that's the big thing, where it comes from, whose interests may be being served, and how to find alternative views. So it's important. This is very important. All right, so we have an activity for you to start you off so that you can see some of the important definitions related to media literacy. So Linda will be putting that in the chat, and we're going to give you just a moment or a few minutes, 5 minutes, to interact with those definitions. So you'll get, if you could please type 2 to 5 word definition for the terms you see. So you're going to go on this Jamboard and you're going to type what you think the definition is of some of these items. Apologies.
If you haven't used Jamboard before in the past, the toolbar over here on the left-hand side, about the 4th one down, is a sticky note. You can click on that sticky note. It will bring up a sticky note. You can type whatever your 2 to 5 word definition. and then it will show up here on the Jamboard, and you can actually drag it and move it around. It's kind of a fun way to interact virtually. And if you have trouble accessing the Jamboard, just type it into the, you can type things into the chat or let us know, and then you can go. I'll put the link here again. There you go.
I saw that someone said they couldn't get it to open, but I do see people in there, so.
Perfect. We're starting to see some people responding. That's okay. If you can't access it, if you want to, if you can see on the screen what the definitions are we'd like for you to think of. So you can always just type some things into the chat if you're struggling with it. So what is media literacy? What is inquiry, authorship, format, audience, purpose, and content are what we're looking at.
And thank you, Jen. Jen shared that clicking on it wasn't working, but copying and pasting worked for her. So that's another option to try. Thank you, Jen.
Authorship, who wrote it. I like the purpose as creator's intention or the goal. I think those are great ways to define it. Inquiry, questioning, media literacy, words found in the media. Oh, being the writer. That's a great one for authorship. The way the info is presented. You guys have got some great information. I like content, whatever the audience needs or wants. That's a good one to look at it too. Purpose, the reason for the writing. That I also like that one. That's a fantastic definition. Oh, format, stylistic guide. That's great too. You guys have got some really good, quick, easy definitions. Again, because we want to make this as easy as possible for our kids. Oh, whoops, I just went, there we go. How much time do we have left, Lauren?
Didn't look, but probably another minute. Sorry.
Yeah, let's do another minute. Looks like people are still entering on the Jamboard. Oh, I like the further developing ideas as part of inquiry, right? It's not just answering the question, but then that question leads to more questioning, which is, kind of that Socratic way of thinking. Mm-hmm. That's a great one. Messages found, skills and knowledge to understand how to navigate and understand the media. Oh, that's a good one too. Information provided, what the topics are about. Fantastic. Okay, let's just have you finish up your last thought with regards to our definitions, and then we'll move on. Oh, I like the crediting original author who said that. That's really important, looking at the sourcing, right, and who's writing it and why. That's fantastic.
We're going to talk about that a little later with some of the ways that our students interact with media. They are not always finding out who the original author is. We're getting the right credit. Oh, good job, Julia.
Fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So Lauren,
I just noticed something else I liked under audience, who the message is targeting. Targeting it being a really important word there. Well, thank you, everyone. So keep those as we continue. We're going to be doing a little bit more with that. So keep those definitions in mind and feel free to keep that Jamboard open. So some more information about really what media literacy is and these definitions, and having kind of a shared definition. This definition comes from a few different places: the National Association of Media Literacy Educators, the Mediaspot.org, and the Center for Media Literacy. And again, these are many of the resources we'll be sharing with you. So media literacy, in this definition, provides a framework. So this idea of media literacy provides a framework to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act. So access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of media. In its simplest terms, media literacy builds upon the foundation of traditional literacy and offers new forms of reading and writing. So literacy is literacy. We're just looking at it, interacting with media is a little bit different than interacting with print matter. And media literacy itself, and teaching it and helping our students understand it, empowers our students to be critical thinkers and makers, effective communicators, and active citizens. So I think that's a really good point, again, that part of that media literacy is also how to create media that is correct, I guess not correct, but like it's presented correctly. So we also expand literacy to include students as empowered and mindful media creators and students as critical readers of media messages. So again, it's not just, well, how do they read it, but how do they also create it themselves with a media literacy mindset. And it also helps build an understanding of the role of media in society. And this is a big one, and I'm not going to read them all to you, and I'll actually give you a moment to just kind of look over these, but there's just a moment. Getting a echo something, just a moment. All right, so something that's really important to think about with media literacy is that our education style and what our students need has changed from the 19th, 20th century to the 21st century. I think there's someone that needs to mute. Just a moment. Sorry. All right, sorry about that. So, all right, so what we need to think about is this big difference between what it was like in the 19th, 20th century and what it is now. So in the 19th, 20th century, it was all about content mastery. There was limited access to knowledge and information. There was an emphasis on learning content knowledge that may or may not be used in life. You had to master that: literature, history, science, etc. The facts and information were spoon-fed by teachers to students. It was print-based information analysis with pen and ink. Classroom limited learning and dissemination with little collaboration. It was, you sit in your row, you got your information, you copied down from the board. Textbook learning from one source, primarily print-based. Mastery demonstrated through papers and tests. That's just not, and students being passive vessels. That's just not what our students need in the 21st century for their lives and to be productive, active members of society. Now this focus is process skills, which inquiry falls really well in with that, but they have infinite access to knowledge and information through the internet, like infinite. They can just pull up Wikipedia, which is not the best source, I know, but they can pull that up and find information on anything. Which is, again, why it's important to teach them how to interact with that information. Process skills allow for lifelong learning, and that's the emphasis. Goal is learning skills to help solve problems. Again, access, analyze, evaluate, create, participate. Discovery, teachers using a discovery approach based on a process of inquiry. Again, we're seeing these same words, inquiry. We have powerful multimedia tools, and all of you know, especially with this past year with distance learning and having to get really creative with the tools out there, there's almost an infinite amount of just tech tools you can use in the classroom. Real world, real-time learning from multiple sources, project-based learning, a mastery being demonstrated through multimedia, and now students are active participants and contributors. So this is a big change from how it was in the 19th-20th century.
So some of the core principles, there are 6 of them that we have here dealing with media literacy. And it's this idea that we wanted to make sure that we have all kind of a common foundation of what exactly we're talking about, like what Lauren's gone through with the definitions and what we're really preparing our students for. Inquiry and critical thinking are at the core of media literacy, as well as expanding that idea of what is media to be all sorts of new things that we maybe never grew up with, or maybe even as ourselves don't engage in as adults. Media literacy you'll want to be building upon this. So this is something that you start early on with little kiddos in kindergarten and first grade and continuously build upon it. So that way they are learning those skills to adapt to any kind of type of media that gets invented or that they end up using over their lifespan. We also want to make sure that the students are, informed and educated, that it also recognizes that culture is part of media literacy and where it comes from. So as we're examining and accepting of all different types of cultures and what that means, what is involved with that. And then also that we want to affirm people's individual beliefs. I got this quote from Elizabeth Tommen, who's the founder of the Center for Media Literacies, where we got a lot of these resources. And again, we link that to it in the Padlet. But I like this quote that she has, which is really simple and to the point, talking about how at the heart of media literacy is that principle of inquiry, which regardless of what content area you're in, I focus obviously on social studies and world languages, culture, but inquiry is huge in social studies and is at the heart of our standards. But I know it is also with science standards, ELA, and with math. So there are 5 main concepts of media literacy, and it's this idea that media starts with people. We're all human beings, we're all fallible. We also all have our own kind of point of view and bias depending upon what you want to say with it. And so recognizing that all media has that kind of point of view is an important starting space. Also understanding that every audience is unique and people are going to come at life with different points of view, different experiences. And so therefore, when you're making those decisions and decoding kind of those messages, we are doing that with a certain point of view. And then moving on, each medium has its strengths and its weaknesses. And so depending upon what your point is, like your purpose, when we talked about with the definition earlier, depending upon what you want to do, you might want to use one medium over another. And as we're looking at having our students create their own media content, determining what is the best and most effective means of communication is what we want them to think about. And then also understanding that media messages affect not only how people see the real world, but they also how it sees themselves too. So there are essential questions, and this comes from Faith Rogow, from PhD. She, as we're going through this and examining these for our students, and so it's the idea of, am I trying to tell the students what the message is, or am I giving the students the skills to determine what they think the message might be? And again, this is something that I kind of go over for those of you maybe that have taken some of my social studies classes, that Sam Weinberg quote, where it's not really our job to give kids the answers, it's our job to give them the tools and the skills needed to solve problems. And that's really where media literacy fits hand in hand with a lot of our inquiry standards. We want to, have I let students know that I'm open to accepting their interpretations as long as they are substantiated, right? Because they've got to back that up with evidence, again, along that inquiry piece. And have I conveyed the message that my interpretation is the only correct view? And we want to really make sure that we are avoiding that. And then at the end of the lesson, as you're going through and looking at it and working with your students, we want them to know, are the students likely to be more analytical? Or on the opposite end, are they going to be more cynical? And so keeping, again, those kinds of things as you're creating those lessons, this is what we want to do. All right, so we're going to go back to that Jamboard again, and we're going to look now at the standards and what exactly, where in our standards are is media literacy. Because I know in certain places, I'm going to put this back into the chat here for you. If you're already in there, go back. And up at the top here, you'll see a rectangle. If you click the arrow over, this will take you to a new page. And so the idea is that we want you to, and I sent you guys links to your standards. Where do you think in the standards now that you have, depending upon your content area and your grade level, where do you think media literacy fits into that? And so we're going to give you about, let's see, let me go back to the slide here, just to take 10 minutes, because it's going to take some time to kind of go through it. But we really want you to see how much media literacy is in there. And I've already gone through for social studies, and even at a kindergarten level, which you don't necessarily think maybe we need to do this, but we do, because kindergartners are getting bombarded with, ads for sugary drinks and ads for, different kinds of clothes to buy and what's popular and not popular, and all that is part of media. So I found a standard in the social studies. K is kindergarten. The SP would be the disciplinary skills and processes, 2.1. And so the standard says, like, with promoting and support, compare diverse cultures using primary sources such as photographs, artifacts, and music, and secondary sources such as fiction and nonfiction. So that's media, right? It's any kind of way in which the kids are looking at things, they're comparing things, and in this case, using our primary and secondary sources. So let's see, I'm going to just set a quick little timer here. And again, if you can't access the Jamboard, that is totally fine. You can do this in the chat, and you don't need to get as specific and copy and paste the standards. But where do you see media literacy in your standards? So like for social studies, for example, we have course considerations, and I know the words media literacy are actually written in there and on a couple grade levels. But where else do you think you see them? Knowing now that we've kind of defined some of these things, we've looked at the different types of media. So where else might media literacy be done?
Oh, I think that we were similar ones that we just put in there. I just put in an ELA example, and I've already got some great ELA ones. But I put in the 7th grade, basically RI7 across the grade levels. I think you could consider the media literacy one, but for 7th grade ELA, for informational texts, one of the standards is to compare and contrast a text to an audio, video, or multimedia version of the text, analyzing each medium's portrayal of the subject. So for example, you would read a speech and then watch the speech being given live on a recording and compare those presentations. That would be part of media literacy.
Absolutely. And someone just put in there from 5th grade one as well, drawing on multiple print and digital resources. We have the same types of resources or standards in social studies, which we've done a different webinar on how to incorporate social studies and ELA, both in an elementary and at the secondary level. But where we're looking at those multiple points of view, when we're looking at different perspectives, anything in which you are examining questions and looking and using multiple forms of media, or when students are having to create something, many times in our standards, we talk about creating arguments and doing that's media, right? Even if it's a written essay, it is a form of media. So our standards are in there.
Yep, somebody just got it. I was going to say, good job, whoever that was. I was going to say most of our writing standards would hit this as well, because thinking about what our students are putting out there, whether it's print, whether it's a poster format, whether it's a video, that's part of it, is gathering from multiple sources and things like that. So I'm seeing some good ELA ones.
Yeah, Roxanne, definitely any social studies standards that deal with multiple sources, all media, regardless of the grade level, and that actually is K-12 for social studies. So there's a lot in there that deals with it.
And I was looking across our anchor standards and trying to see where else, because again, where it crosses all the grade levels.
Yeah, if any of you guys teach world languages, because I do world languages as well, any of the cultural competency standards dealing with world languages Oh, there you go. Thank you, Maria. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Whether you're a novice learner or advanced, it's all about those cultural competencies, and those absolutely deal with media and looking at the cultures and comparing them. Absolutely. Oh, good. Writing narratives. Yep. Oh, good. We're getting some more. Drawing evidence from literary and informational texts, integrating multiple sources of information in diverse media and formats. Yep. Oh, using a variety of reference materials. Yep. Figurative language. Oh, that's a good one. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, anytime you have kids use media as a presentation, I know a lot of our standards require kids and students to do different types of presentations in there. And so that's as well another one. Mm-hmm.
Actually, even some of our speaking and listening standards, just looking at speaking and listening standard 4 and 5, actually standard 5, make strategic use of digital media and visual displays of data to express information. I'll go add that.
Mm-hmm. We should have a couple more minutes left. And then we will move on.
I mean, I think just because media is everywhere, it kind of touches everything we do, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. And that's honestly, that's one of the things that we want to, while it doesn't necessarily word for word say media literacy in our standards, it is one of the things that Lauren and I wanted to make sure to get across, is that the idea of media literacy and teaching our students to be literate with all the media that they're doing is definitely a key, regardless of what content or what grade level. You know, I taught mostly high school and some middle school, and it is, you know, in everything we do, we have kids look at the source of it and where did it come from and what kind of bias would it be. Yes, definitely in the 8th grade standards, and in fact in the course considerations, I think it even says in 8th grade media literacy as part of it. Yep. Internet searches from governments. Yep. Perfect. That's fantastic.
Yep. Speaking and listening in 1st grade, ask and answer questions about key details in a text read aloud or information presented orally or through other media. You could definitely.
Yeah, so even with little ones, right, in kindergarten and 1st grade, you're starting to teach them those skills that we're going to go over, some of those key questions that we want to do with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think I'm going to just end this a little early now, or the definition part, because I want to make sure it's already after 4. I want to make sure that we get to some lessons and show you a couple things that we're looking at. So we're going to move on here. And I'm going to turn it over to Lauren now.
All right, so now we're going to jump into some methods of teaching media literacy. And we're going to do some activities with you all as well. So again, this is another item from, I believe it's from the Center for Media Literacy, but this inquiry process for media literacy. So we start with activating your mind with the items of media literacy, and that includes analysis, deconstruction, decoding, and reading. Then expressing your view, the next inquiry process, and that includes production, construction, creating, and writing. So creating your own media literacy. And then the things we do where we are participating in our world and the citizenship that we have. And that would include awareness, observing, engaging, reflection, and action. So all of these, these are different levels of the inquiry process of media literacy. And so what we are going to do with this is, we have some questions that you could use for each of these levels of the inquiry process. So, for example, some 5 key questions for the deconstruction process, which falls under the activating of the mind. Some questions that you could ask are, Who created this message? What techniques are they using to attract my attention? How might different people understand this message differently? What values, lifestyles, and points of view are represented or omitted from this message? And why is this message being sent? And we also have some adaptations for younger children of these same questions. What is this? How is this put together? Etc. Go ahead. For construction, so again, falling under that expressing your view. So this is where you are creating the media. Some questions to ask. What am I authoring? For younger children, you could ask, what am I making? How do I put it together? Does my message reflect understanding? Is my message engaging? Have I framed values, lifestyles, and points of view in my content? Have I communicated my purpose effectively? So these are inquiry questions your students could ask themselves as they are creating something. And so our next piece is you need to do something so that we can try this activity or try this activity with you all. So on the Padlet that Linda has shared, and she'll share again, under the column for practice media literacy, which she's showing you on the screen right now, there's a short article. So we're going to give you a moment, we'll mute, and we wanted to give you a moment to read that article and just be ready to do an activity with it. So it's K-Power energy bars.
Yeah, I'm gonna just pull it up on my screen so that way if anyone has trouble accessing it,
Perfect.
They can see more of it.
And we'll give you a few minutes and you can type in the chat when you're done reading the article. It's just one page, right? Yeah, just one page.
just a couple of minutes more. And yeah, as you finish up, if you can just type done in the chat, and then we can move on. All right, you ready, Lauren? Looks like everybody's just about done. Oh, I didn't realize this is me. Sorry. Okay, so now that we've done the article, we're going to actually have you guys go through this, which you can take and do something with this, or take any form of media and go through it with your students. So authorship, you want to ask yourselves, okay, with regards to the article you just read, who created the message? So if you can type that into the chat for me, I'd appreciate it. And so some scaffolding kinds of questions that you can ask with your kids is what kind of text this is, what are the various elements, how similar or different is it if you're doing some kind of comparison with the article, what choices were made that might have been different. So we have Dr. Kay Powerton as the author, perfect. And then again, you can also, on the construction side of things, if you're having students construct things, asking them, you know, what am I authoring, and what kind of go through that before too. All right. So next one, let's see here, format. So what creative techniques were used by Dr. Kay Powerton with regards to creating this article on Power K bars? What things did you guys notice? Storytelling, good. And here are some different scaffolding kinds of questions too to help you guys out with your students. A visual graph. Graphs can be really powerful. Persuasive language, color, visuals, perfect. And when you have your kids be aware of these things, when they're doing the construction portion as opposed to doing the deconstruction, right? Does their message reflect an understanding? What kind of creativity, knowledge? And then we've got more scaffolding kind of questions that you can then use. And again, you'll get these resources. I'm not going to go through and read them for you. So when we look at the next one, right? So with regards to our Power K bar, how might different people understand the message differently? So who was this audience? And then keeping in mind, how might someone that's not as interested in health, you know, view this message? And so these are some scaffolded questions that you can ask your kids going through this. And then when your students are creating their own messages, right, and they're doing that construction, is my message engaging? Is it compelling? So do you think this article was engaging and compelling? I know someone earlier said, I think now they wanted to go out and buy some Power K bars, right? So that means it was engaging, right? The article and what they wrote, you know, had those historical facts maybe, you know, came into play with it. And so that also, here are some more scaffolded questions that you can use to have your kids ask and answer when they're doing construction. Let's see here, next one, content-wise. Let's see here. What values, lifestyles, and points of view were represented or omitted in this, which in fact, Sydney, thank you, that's perfect, right? Content-wise, so you wanted to know maybe the side effects, right? Other health issues or people that suffered from a lack of vitamin K. So there are all sorts of different things that you can ask. And again, right, kind of with that more Socratic inquiry, what more questions do you want to know? What maybe studies could have been done on this? And then as your kids then on the construction side of media, have they clearly and consistently framed values, lifestyles, and points of view in their content, right? Yes, like sources and the studies were not cited at all. And that story with Christopher Columbus, I have no idea if it's true or not. Yeah, how much sugar is in the product. All of these are kinds of things that we definitely want our kids to be asking when they're reading this, because this looks like it's a scientific kind of article, right? Look at that graph. It looks, and kids can get bought into it. Adults, buy into those kinds of things. But again, having kids ask these questions when they're consuming media, and then also when they're producing media as well, is going to make them much more informed. And then I think the last one here, purpose. Why is this message being sent? Right? Exactly. She may not, Dr. K just might be a, doctor of, I don't know, whatever she calls herself, right? Is she really a PhD? Does she represent athletes? Exactly. And so what's the purpose? What's the purpose of this message? Why did Dr. K Powerton sell her Power K bars? And is she even a real person? Is this something that the media on, Madison Avenue created to try and sell power bars? And so again, as they're consuming the media, we want them to keep these questions in mind. As they are producing media, we want our students to keep these things in mind. And so that way they're very aware of all of the things that are going on with that. Let's see. And then am I doing this one, Lauren? I can't remember here. Okay. Perfect.
So again, with this inquiry process and asking these questions, there are some extended questions that you can also ask or have your students think about with media that they're consuming. What makes this message seem realistic or unrealistic? How does this message fit with your lived experience of the world? What social or ideological messages are a part of the message's subtext? What kinds of behaviors and what kinds of consequences are depicted? So were there consequences of if you took this bar, ate this bar? What is omitted from the message? Side effects? That kind of thing. And what point of view is presented? So these extended questions get your students to dig even deeper on the purpose of these things, of the piece of media that they're viewing. And again, all fits really well in with this idea of this inquiry process for each type of media that they're consuming. And with that, speaking of popular media that our students are consuming, it's just this is a simple lesson you could do with your students, especially your older students that are interacting with things like TikTok and Instagram and things like that. So for those of you who may not be very familiar with TikTok is an app, so usually on the phone, and it is videos, and they're little, very short bites, like 30 or 60 seconds, and someone can spread a message however they'd like. You can use video, you can use text, you can use sounds, you can use strange filters, which you're about to see one of those. And the big thing about TikTok is somebody can record something, a sound that they think is interesting, or a song, or a sound bite, and it can be reused over and over again with different videos and different sounds for different purposes. But what's happening there is you don't know, sometimes the original sound isn't credited, the original purpose of the sound isn't credited, and then it's being used for multiple things. So that's one thing to know about with TikTok, and it's actually a really good point to make for your students on plagiarizing and crediting people and things like that. But we wanted to show you, so TikToks are actually a really simple way that you could do a media literacy lesson with your students. And we actually will have for you a link on how you can download a TikTok video. And then also TikTok offers a whole series of how to be informed on TikTok. So we have those links for you when we share out your resources. But what we're going to do is we just wanted to have you guys give this a try. So we're going to show you a TikTok that's about, I think it's related to environmental issues. And so go ahead and watch it. We can play it a couple times if we need to. They're fast. And what we want you to do after we watch it is we want you to think about some questions you would ask your students to help them analyze the video. And you can share some of those questions in the chat, thinking about all those great inquiry questions we just shared with you.
I will play this a couple times, but because it is quick.
It goes fast.
Yep. Oh, whoops. So that was it. I'll go ahead and play it again and not click on anything so it doesn't stop in the middle of it. All right. There we go.
And so you can see that was an example of that's a sound and a filter that were used for multiple videos. But there's a point that she's trying to make with it, it's just scary how there's all these environmental things going on. So what kind of questions could you ask your students to get them to really critically observe and analyze that video if they were watching it on their own, which they are? What kind of questions could you ask them to get them to think about the video and the messages that it's trying to give? Excellent.
Yeah, definitely no sites were sorted. So where's where's she getting her evidence? Mm-hmm. Where's the information coming from? Oh, I like what's the purpose of the video?
That's a good question. Why is slapstick being inserted into a serious and urgent issue? What is the purpose behind the way she presented the information? That's good. And if this were to be something you did with your students, just know there is a way to credit your sources when you share a TikTok video. There's a portion where you can type like a caption, and I've seen it done. People do credit where they found the sources. So it is, if you ask your students and you're having them look, there are good examples of where they have credited their sources. Why did she post it? How does the music relate to the topic?
Those are all good. And also, like Lauren had said, sorry to interrupt, I'm not on TikTok. I know nothing about it. And so in doing the research for this, I did find, which Lauren had mentioned, TikTok does have a Be Informed series. They are totally cheesy, but I can see kids really liking them. And so we included that link, as well as we understand too, that with sometimes the filters on the internet, you can't access TikTok in your class. And so I have found a way. It's really techie, but actually this video, because I knew nothing about it, I don't have a TikTok account, showed me exactly how to download a TikTok video, and it was so super easy. So that way you can download it and then you can access it anytime to do this with your kids.
And I was going to say another thing to think about, if this is how our students are interacting with information, whether or not we love it, we need them to think about how they're getting this information and what is being said. But another thing to think about, if we think about the construction side of media literacy and having our students construct their own media, you could do an activity like this and have them make their own TikToks, but not on TikTok. There's a really fantastic tool called Flipgrid. Some of you maybe have used it, and it's the same thing, but it's very educational in nature. And your students, oh my gosh, I just saw the time. Sorry. Your students can make short videos with music, with sound, with text, and you could have them make their own TikTok style video, but where they have to credit their sources, where they have to do certain things, and have them think about how it is to be an informed producer of media. So another thing to think about with this, because it is something that our students are interacting with for sure.
So let's see. Oh, this is me now. All right. So some ideas, because we've got about 5 minutes left. And so we're not going to go through a bunch of media, but we want to give you our lessons specifically, other than the couple things that we've done with you today, but some themes to think about for those of you that teach grades K through 5. Things like expanding the reading and writing to include that critical consumption and production of all forms of media. building those skills to look at culture creatively, collaboratively, and independently. Also keeping in mind that these are skills that we want our kids to build on. So for those of you that are teaching grades K-5, you're giving them those things that they're going to practice over and over again, and then the secondary teachers will build upon that, going maybe further in depth and things like that. And again, these are ideas that we want our kids when they graduate from high school, right, to be citizens, digital citizens that are informed, and not to be misled by information, and to make sure that they're fact checking the things that they're reading. So that way it goes beyond just what they're doing in school. And then also those media literacy concepts and digital skills help them to really look at their standards regardless across the content areas. For grades 6 through 12, it's more looking at things like giving kids that ample time to read and use whatever platform. So really starting to kind of shake up so that you are introducing things like TikTok, or you're having them create TikToks like Lauren had mentioned. Looking at more curated media literacy items, getting them to read. Also looking at 2 different points of view to look at that contrast and that contrary points of view to see where they're doing. And then again, teaching them to use their devices in meaningful and responsible ways. And the fact that those devices on their phones are extraordinarily powerful. Some ideas that you could do would be maybe doing an article of the week, a graph of the week, a video of the week, maybe having kids find things on the content area that you're doing or the unit that you're doing in science or in ELA and bringing them in and having the class analyze them are also great things too. And you could get like prior approval sort of thing to do that. Another great place to go is the Pulitzer Center. And so they have already canned, ready to go media literacy lesson plans, which are fantastic and well vetted. They have a journalist toolbox, which is fantastic, of underreported stories. And this would be great for like world language teachers to go out and find articles in the target language of countries maybe that you teach, or if you want to bring in those multiple perspectives in the social studies class, or depending upon the piece of literature maybe that you're reading, bring in some of those diverse texts and diverse points of view. So the underreported stories is fantastic, and I put a special link at it here. They have slides, they have poetry that's brought in from headlines, have kids reflect on where they get their news from, and then finding up those backup sources. So that way they don't read down, they start to read horizontally. So you look at something online, you instantly open a new tab to verify, okay, well, where else is this? And you open a new tab, where else is this? The Stanford History Education Group, or SHEG, has a new thing called Civic Online Reasoning that has fantastic things and lessons, and it's all about teaching kids to read horizontally as opposed to reading vertically and then realizing, okay, I'm not sure the source or this article is even good with it. Another place, so we did kind of break them out for you guys based upon grade band, and we went with a K-5 grade band. So these are some good places to go. The News Literacy Project, you can actually sign up, and I now get their email, which has got great ideas for it. You could do the Global Education Resources. There's this Gecko Goof ebook on media literacy that is great for young kids. You've got the Not So Fast Fact Checking infographic, which is good. iCivics has great things. Illinois Media Literacy Toolkit. And then the NAMLA Media Monsters is also another good one that you can use for younger grades. And then when we look at secondary, we've got tons of reader lists out here. We've got Newslit is a good one. Civic Online Reasoning is the one I was looking at. Library Voice, the Newseum has some great lessons for it too. This is a super good one. Should you share it? And I would use this for if I was teaching government or econ, but even other ones too, because I think it's great. But it basically says, hey, think of yourself as more conservative or more liberal? And then they evaluate sources and whether or not you should share it. It is a fantastic one. And I know our time is up. Connecticut PBS has some great lessons. This CRAP test is a great one that I found to see, does this kind of hold muster? This is where we got some of our sources. Quick methods to remembering, recognizing fake news, questioning numbers and figures, understanding the brain. You guys will all have this in the resources. This is also a very good article for you personally about why media literacy is not an option and that you should teach it. And then last but not least, because we have run out of time, and I'm so sorry to kind of zip through this, but you will get all of those things that are hyperlinked to you. If you can put your name into the chat as a redundancy for me to check your attendance, first and last name. Your attendance will be completed within a week, but I usually do it within a couple of days. Then you can print your certificate. Wait for that email from me. Once you get that email, then you know, okay, great, I can get in and get my certificate. I will also include the PDF of today's resources for you. It is already out there on the Padlet, because I know almost all of us are back in school already. So you've got access to it if you want to get it right now already on that Padlet. And then with that, Lauren and I say thank you very much. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions or concerns, or want to have more specific details. We are there for you. Our jobs now are to teach teachers, and that's what we do. And with that, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording.